consistent through generations. And one of the things that I've come to realize, and the things that I've learned so far, and I'm learning in the books that I'm reading and the research that we're doing, is that most of the wealthy individuals uh, tend to spend the least. And let me recap that. They tend to spend the least, right? Although we have Hey, welcome back, and I am as usual here, just with some concepts and some of the things that I was thinking about today on whether on the real habits, and as you follow me on my videos, I really try to understand the mindsets of the individuals that are able to accumulate wealth in the long term, and just keep it in a way consistent through generations. And one of the things that I've come to realize, and the things that I've learned so far, and I'm learning in the books that I'm reading and the research that we're doing, is that most of the wealthy individuals uh, tend to spend the least. And let me recap that. They tend to spend the least, right? Although we have this kind of misunderstanding of how most of the rich individuals spend their money, let's redefine the way we think of wealth. For me, growing up, especially in minority communities, um, for us, especially my family, our communities, we viewed the wealthy as the individuals that were buying the luxury cars, right? We're talking about a Lamborghini, Maseratis, the SUV trucks. We're talking about six figures and more vehicles, right? Buying the mansions, $3, $4, $5 million mansions, um, wearing the expensive name brand clothes. This is the imagery that I was kind of brought up with, whether it be media, watching the famous people lifestyles on, whether it was for me growing up MTV, MTV Cribs, right? We grew up with this. If you're a millennial like myself, you grew up watching these perceptions of the reality of what the rich and, well, what the wealthy individuals are doing. And what we really were being told, or what we really were seeing, or kind of the illusion, was that that was how the rich individuals lived, and rich was not the same as wealth. Um, there's a lot of people that we might know in our daily lives that we interact with every single day that are very rich. They have high income, normally very I would say affluent careers, whether they're at the top of their companies, as far as positions, even doctors and lawyers and individuals that are earning six figures and above are considered rich. We call these individuals rich people. They have an great influx of money coming in. Now, the only difference is, and if you read Rich Dad Poor Dad, is that they uh, have that money coming in, but at the same time they have a very high lifestyle. It says they have the luxury car, the big mansion, um, the expenses. They have just an exuberant amount of expenses because they have to kind of, in a way, live up to this image of being rich, right? They have great career, great success. They have maybe a lot of colleagues and same income, and we're not taking into account student loans, right? So, and student loans in six figures as well. And it's something that we kind of, I think personally for myself, I was always under the impression growing up that equaled wealth, right? And now when I started really deep diving and understanding the wealth mindset and how individuals build wealth in the long term, is quite the opposite, right? The wealthy are not gonna you're not gonna see them trying to stunt. We call it stunt, or show their wealth to other individuals. You're not gonna see it as far as the eyes can see. Their wealth is built on assets that are unseen. And a lot of paper assets, where we talked about stock market, bonds, um, all these instruments on the bond market or stock market that are things that you just don't see. They're there, and these accounts are there for their kids, for their grandkids, for themselves, for the long term, and they're not in a bank somewhere. They're not. Again, they're not in vehicles. They're not in jewelry. They're not in clothing. They're not in expensive housing. They're in assets that are producing income for them for the long run, and they don't cost them anything. It's just investing, right? So I really wanted to just hit home with this video in the sense that maybe we can pick up a little bit of the habits of the wealthy. Um, just because you're making right now, especially you're young, especially young individuals watching me, I think this is a great message for anybody that's come out of college with student loan and has just gotten a six-figure income job and it's considered successful. You're rich. Don't get caught up in the inflation as far as your lifestyle inflation. And let me explain about that. Now, that's a term where I've heard a lot of as well other individuals talk about it. Where as soon as you get that new increase, that salary increase, a new job, the bonus, you start living up to that new income. The so basically the higher your income, the more you're gonna spend. So now you're never really gonna have breathing area or breathing room, I called it, to save and invest some of that money because the more you're making, the more you're spending. And I honestly think one of the things that I believe so much, and you have a lot of individuals talk about it as well. If you're not able to manage, let's say $1,000, you're not able to manage the money correctly in a sense as you spend a little bit that you have to spend on your living expenses obviously and you save and invest some of it, you're not going to be able to manage $10,000. You're not going to be able to manage 50 or 100 or even $1 million, right? It all starts with how you manage the little that you have is going to be a building habit for the long term and eventually when you have millions, right? It doesn't matter. The whole point is it doesn't matter what is coming in, it's how you managing it. So I think unfortunately in our society, especially in the communities that I live in, we get caught up in success or rich or wealth equals high income or potential of some careers that make a lot of money. Not necessarily is that going to equal your wealth if you don't know how to manage it. I'm not going to sit here that there's not a lot of wealthy individuals that are making a lot of money. Of course, there's individuals that know how to handle their money. So even though they're making six figures, they're actually living below their means. So one of the things I think we can all take away from the wealthy individuals is that most of them live below their means. So just because you got that new job right now, you got that new promotion, you got a new raise, just try to stay below that. Try to stay living at the current position or whatever current level you're at for a while, right? Act broke. They say act broke as long as you can, because that is where the real wealth is created, right? You take that extra money, that extra side money you're not spending, and you invest it. And in the long run, in the term of, let's say, 10, 15, 20 years, you look back and you see your money growing, you say, okay, now it's time if you want to, reward yourself or buy something for yourself that you might want to do for yourself, that's fine. But understand that the longer you can act broke, and a lot of wealthy individuals do this. I worked in the financial sector, and I saw a lot of wealthy individuals that would come to me in the retail banking industry, and you can never tell they have millions of dollars sitting in their bank, right? Not in that bank, but invested. They just look like simple individuals, and they didn't have anything that on that you can tell these individuals were wealthy individuals. And that was one of the things that I took away as well, was that just because you can spend it, right, you have the income to spend it or buy that or buy something that you want to buy, doesn't mean you have to, or doesn't mean that you should, right? We are also told that to build wealth, expensive things and look certain ways, or buy the big house, or just because you have the income or the money, doesn't mean you should be spending it. Again, it's all about how you manage it. And one of the things I learned if you're young is that don't focus so much on how much you're making, how much you have to make, and what it is that you're going to do next. Focus on what you have. How can you manage it better? How can you maybe put some of the monies to work for you better? Educate yourself. Financial literacy. Number one thing I would probably advise as well is for young individuals is to give yourself the chance, the opportunity by educating yourself, giving yourself financial literacy. We know the basics when we come out of school, but we don't really know the details. We don't learn about index funds. We don't learn about high yield savings. We don't learn about spending less than you make. We don't learn about 401k investing, IRAs, Roth IRAs. These are things that we kind of miss in school. We're not really taught that. So I think as soon as you come out of school, these are terms that we should be learning about, because they're gonna be carrying us into our 30s, into our 40s, into our 50s, all the way into retirement, right? So it doesn't matter, how much education you have in school right now, and you're coming out with, the money you're making right now is not going to guarantee your wealth. What's going to guarantee your wealth is what you do with this income. So don't get it twisted thinking that because you're making more than your friends or making more than family or vice versa, that they're going to be wealthy. They're going to be rich, right? Don't get me wrong, they're going to be rich. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to have wealth. The lifestyles that they might be carrying might basically leave them starting at zero at the end of the year after all the money they made. So learning how to manage your money, understanding to live below your means, are the factors, or I would say one of the key ways to build wealth in the long term. And using the extra money that you're not spending, not spending, investing it for the long term in increments as you go, right? And the smarter you get, the wiser you get, the more income you're gonna get, the better, obviously the better careers, whatnot. That's gonna just magnify your investing in the long run. And it's really simple, right? We think that it's something out there that we can't do. And you don't have to be a rich or wealthy individual to build wealth. Most of the wealthy individuals started with nothing, started just like myself and yourself. They started just like that, just investing in the long term and having a great outlook on the future. An optimistic outlook, I think, helps us a lot. Not worrying about the doom days and all things that's going to happen if we start investing and then we're going to lose everything. Having an optimistic approach, educating ourselves, having the financial literacy. Again, financial literacy, a big thing. And understanding that it's not about how much you make, but it's about what you do with what you make. And hopefully this goes a little bit more into your brain, that it's not about how much you're making, it is what are you doing with your making. And if you can't invest or you can't manage $1,000, you're not going to be able to manage $100,000. We need to learn this first and foremost before we move on to the next couple of chapters in our lives. And in your 20s, I think if you watch this video in your 20s, you're going to be way more advanced or way more in better shape than I was in my 20s. And reason for me making this video is that this is the advice or maybe even content I wish I would have came across from someone like myself, a Latino individual, growing up in a household where we didn't have a lot of financial literacy, if any, and communities that didn't really support that. We didn't have resources like that. So it kind of took me years and years of learning and going across social media as well, watching other content creators that I've seen here as well, that are really talking about that as well, as building your wealth and really focusing on investing for the long run, so that you don't have to work for the rest of your life. So I hope this brings you some insight, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.